Good evening, folks. We are at 2-4 now, solving equations with variables on both sides. Now, just like 2-3, we're going to split this up into two parts. So the first, for this video, we're going to solve equations with variables on both sides, just like the title says. And then in video 2, we're going to look at something called an identity and a contradiction, and also some story problems. So you can see in your vocab words today, we have identity and contradiction. Now we will get more into these in the second video, but go ahead and get these vocab words down. So an identity is an equation that's true for all values of the variable. In other words, it's an equation that has many solutions. Then a contradiction is an equation that is not true for any value. So in other words, it's an equation that has no solution. No value of x works. So in 2-3 we did two-step and then we moved to multi-step equations. Now here we're going to be doing many of the same things, except for we'll have a variable on both sides. So that adds an extra step at first. So let's look at some examples of this. Now when we have an equation with variables on both sides, the first thing we want to do before we do anything else, before we do the steps, all that good stuff, is we want to get the variables together on one side of the equation. So here's our first example. As you can see, we have 7n on this side, and then we have 5n on this side. So before we can do anything, before we can ask the question, what's happening to our variable, we need to get our variables on the same side. So to do that, we're simply going to move one term from one side to the other. So let's say we want to move 5n over here with 7n. Well, to cancel out the 5n, I'm going to subtract it, because 5n minus 5n is nothing, essentially, 0. Now remember, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I'm also going to do that to this side. So 7n minus 5n is 2n. So then I have 2n minus 2 equals 6. Now that I have the variables on the same side, I'm right back to a two-step equation. So I ask the question, what's happening to my variable? Well, first, it's being multiplied by 2, and second, it's being subtracted by 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2. So let's do that first. I end up with 2n equals 8, and then to undo times 2, I'm going to divide by 2. And then I come up with n equals 4. So now I've solved that equation. As you can see, it's just kind of an extra step. Before I do what we've been doing before, I just got to get the variables together. Let's look at another one. Alright, so again, you can see I have a 0.3y and I have a 0.7y. So, I need to get those together. Now, I usually move the smaller one. You don't have to. I can move either one. But I'm just going to move this 0.3y. And since it's plus 0.3y, I'm going to do the opposite. So I'm moving to minus 0.3y. Once again, this is going to cancel. So I have 0.5 left on this side. My point a little lower there. So then I get 0.4y minus 0.3. Now again, I ask the question, what's happening to my variable y? Well, it's being timesed by 0.4, and then it's being subtracted by 0.3. So to solve this equation, I'm going to add 0.3. Let's do that first. Over here, negative 0.3 plus 0.3 is 0. Over here, I get 0.8 equals 0.4y. And the second thing I'm going to do is divide by 0.4. 0.8 divided by 0.4 is 2. so y equals 2. Okay? So that's the first type of problem you'll run into as you work on your homework. Now the next thing is they'll get a little more complicated. Alright? Now these ones are kind of fun because you got to do a lot of stuff before you can start solving. So on these ones we may need to simplify first. Now remember, simplifying an expression is using the distributive property and combining like terms. So you can see here we have quite a few of the same variables. We have parentheses, we have variables on both sides, we got all sorts of stuff going on here. So the first thing we want to do, we're going to work side by side here and start out with the left side, get it simplified, then simplify the right side, then start our work. So if we're looking at the left side here, I have negative 6a and positive 4a that are like terms. So I'm going to put those together. So negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2. So that side is actually just 4 minus 2a. Over here I got some parentheses. I'm taking this negative 5 here and I'm distributing it through the parentheses. So that gives me negative 1 minus 35. This is negative 5 and negative 2, so that's going to be plus 10a. Now again, I have some like terms. I have a negative 1 and I have a negative 35, so I need to put those guys together. So then I have 4 minus 2a equals negative 36 plus 10a. Okay, now I have each side, the left side and the right side, simplified. So now all I have is an equation with variables on both sides. So if you'll remember, the first thing we got to do is get the variables together. So I'm going to move this 2a over with the 10a. Well, it's a minus 2a, so I need to add 2a to do that. So this is going to cancel. Get 4 equals negative 36 plus 12a. Now we're to a two-step equation. What's happening to a? Well, it's being times by 12 and subtracted by 36. Okay, I went with the sign in front of the 36. So to undo that, I have to add 36. So let's do that. That gives me 40 equals 12a. And then I gotta divide by 12. Now 40 divided by 12, that's not going to come out even, so I can just reduce that fraction. Let's see. 4 goes into both of those, so that's going to be actually 10 over 3. Or I could also write 3 1/3. Okay? So you can see these get a little bit longer, and there's nothing we can really do about that. You just have to take your time and work through it step by step. Let's look at another one. Alright, so again, I'm going to work, let's start with the left side. Now remember, when I see a negative sign in front of parentheses, that's really negative 1 times the parentheses. So let's take care of that first. Negative 1 times t is negative 1t, and negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. Alright, then I got some like terms. I got a 5 and a negative 3 that I can put together. 5 minus 3 is 2, so that gives me 2 minus 1t on this left side. Alright, now let's look at the right side. I got a 2 in front of the parentheses, so I'm going to do 2 times t, which is 2t, and 2 times negative 3, which is negative 6. Now again, I got some like terms, so negative 1 and negative 6. If I put those together, I get -7, so I have 2t minus 7. Okay, so now I'm down to an equation with variables on both sides. I need to get them together. So let's move this 1t over here with the 2t. These guys cancel, so I get 2 equals 3t minus 7. Now I'm back to a two-step equation. I ask, what's happening to my variable t? Well, it's being times by 3 and subtracted by 7. So to solve this, the first thing I'm going to do is add 7. So let's do that. So I get 9 equals 3t. So 3 times t. To undo that, I got to divide by 3. I'm running out of room here a little bit. Let's move this guy down. Divide by 3. So I get t equals 3. Okay? One more here real quick. Alright, so it looks like on the left side I got parentheses, I got to distribute. So I got 1/2 b, and then 1/2 times 6, that's 3. And this right side's already simplified. So now I have, again, an equation with variables on both sides. I need to get them together. So let's take this 1/2 b and move it over. Since it's positive, I have to subtract it. Cancels over here. I just have 3. 3 halves minus 1/2, that's 2 halves, which would just be 1. Okay, so what's happening to my variable now? Well, I don't really need that 1 there, right? We don't have to write that, so it's really just b minus 1. Now the nice thing here is that it's just a one-step equation. What's happening to b? Well, it's being minused by 1. What am I going to do to fix that? Well, I'm going to add 1. Remember those one-step equations that you liked so much? This is kind of one of those. So let's add 1. And we figure out that b is 4. Okay? So those are the two types of equations you're going to run into today, or tomorrow I should say. Be careful here. These take a long time and they're step by step, so they're not something you're going to be able to do at lightning fast pace. Okay? So just take your time and work through step by step, and you should be able to get these. We'll see you tomorrow.